Hey, folks, welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa, this breaking exclusive story here. My guest is from AfriForum. He's a campaigns manager there, and I'm going to screw up his surname. I'll do my best, but it's Jacques Broodryk from AfriForum. Jacques, hoe gaan dit?
Chris, goed, dankie met jou.
Well, I'm well. Thank you very much. It's great. It's a pleasure to have you on. Listen, I brought you on to quickly talk to you about this Supreme Court of Appeals decision, which was handed down a short while ago in Bloemfontein, in which the decision last year by the Tourism Minister Ngubane was now declared to be unlawful. Now that's, I say shocking, not from the standpoint of morality, ethics, and the law, but from the standpoint that last year when AfriForum and Solidarity went on two separate cases, if I'm not mistaken, went to the North Gauteng High Court to seek urgent relief. That case was dismissed with cost. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It was dismissed. So we petitioned the Supreme Court of Appeal, and they were willing to hear us out. And we stated our case, and it was argued, and the court found in our favor. And the court found that the minister had made an error in law in deciding that Black economic empowerment principles need to apply before people can qualify to get financial aid because of the damage that was caused by COVID-19 lockdowns in the tourism sector.
Well, as I described this last year, I call this at the time a black swan event, something you just don't see. It's such a rarity. Of course, now we see that this is going to go into perpetuity, it seems, with governments around the world. So at the time that decision was made, it was pretty shocking, I would say, that they dismissed your case and they allowed us to go forward. I mean, as an outside observer, not a South African, without a dog in the fight, I'm like, how can a government be allowed to have such a thing, a relief fund that's meant to help businesses survive this, and they intentionally avoid giving money to all businesses that would qualify, only based on skin pigmentation? I can't see that as anything other than racist. That was my take on it. I assume that may be why Solidarity and AfriForum went after this case. Is that why you guys pursued it?
Yeah, we did. I mean, this is blatant discrimination. And it is racism. You're right. That's the only way you can describe it. You know, in South Africa, we have a lot of laws that are written into law that discriminates against minority groups based on their skin color. Because of apartheid in the history, and it's supposed to be laws that bring balance into society, but it's not how it's practically happening. What's happening is that these Black economic empowerment laws are being abused by government officials to enrich themselves and their cousins and their friends and their brothers. So they just hand out contracts to other Black people, and thus excluding other minorities. But what happened in this case specifically, what is quite shocking is South Africa has a very drastically shrinking tax base. At the moment, we have roughly 3 million taxpayers who pay 90% of the income tax, and roughly 18 million people are supported on social grants. So those are people who can't work. So you can clearly see that this is an unsustainable situation. Now, what makes it even more infuriating is that a large amount of the 3 million the taxpayers are white people and other minority groups, and now they're being excluded from getting relief from the taxes that they've paid to government. So it's quite infuriating, and it's absolutely immoral.
Well, I would agree absolutely with both those points. And the thing that I said at the time is that, I mean, are you cutting off your nose to spite your face? I mean, it's not like, now I've been all over South Africa hundreds of times and been to many tourism destinations, including places like Madikwe up there next to the border with Botswana. And my recollection is that the vast majority of people that work in these tourism businesses, in the hospitality industry, in the restaurants, all these places tend to be Black South Africans, even though the businesses might be owned by coloreds or Indians or whites. So, I mean, if you refuse this relief to minority-owned businesses, are you not harming Black South Africans, was my argument at the time. But it seemed to have fallen on the deaf, racist ears of the ruling National Party.
You're absolutely exactly right. And that's, one of the things that wasn't taken into consideration was, for instance, how many Black people are employed at a certain tourism establishment in order to determine whether they qualify for aid or not. Now, I don't think that should be a qualifying factor in any means, by any means whatsoever, but just use the minister's own logic. They didn't even look at that. So how can you tell me that you're looking out for Black people if you're only looking at how many Black businesses are owned by Black people or managed by Black people up to a certain level of management, which brings you back to the point that it's an excuse. They don't care about Black people in this country. They care about enriching themselves and their brothers and their connections.
Well, and that's what I have to say about this specifically, is that it seems much more to be an effort at buying votes and a patronage. Because, I mean, we're not talking about a large amount of money here, Jacques. I mean, it was 50,000 was a maximum you could qualify under 200 million Rand policy, and 15,000 Rand, that's like 3,300 US dollars. That's not going to save any business except some guy hawking, gum on the side of the street, or a spaza or a tuck shop or something like that. It's certainly not going to save a hotel. I mean, you're not going to see the Protea survive off of 50,000 Rand, Protea hotel chain, or a game lodge. But the point here is that in the end, I suspect, correct me if I'm wrong, I suspect it's the basis, the example, the morality of this thing is why Solidarity and AfriForum went forward with this case, because it sets an illegitimate, immoral, and I believe unlawful. It's a violation of South Africa's constitution, in my view. It's a violation of the existing law, the Emergency Management Act, and it's also a violation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to which South Africa is a party to. I find it vile, offensive, and repulsive that 30 years after apartheid, we have race-based laws in South Africa that discriminate against South Africans. It's quite a shocking development, and the world is stuck in the view of South Africa, a lens of the 27th of April, 1994, the Rainbow Nation. It's all come together, and people really aren't paying attention to the events in South Africa. Have I missed anything there? Did I get it wrong?
You've got it absolutely spot on, and like you pointed out, that the absolute irony that South Africa has this stain on its name because of what happened during the apartheid years, which obviously was wrong. It was absolutely wrong. It can't be excused. But now the government that was supposed to be liberators and brought us the idea of a rainbow nation and everyone can work together, let's leave the past in the past, are now doing the exact same thing that the apartheid government used to do. So it seems like they learned a few good lessons from the old National Party government.
Well, that is kind of, not to get into that, but it is kind of the irony. I've been telling people for a very long time, because I used to work in the intelligence community, in that community, and also since I've left active service, that it's ironic, but the ANC, the National Party, very similar in so many ways. You've switched parties. I mean, both parties comfortable with state-owned enterprises for different reasons, but they're comfortable with both comfortable with patronage. The list goes on and on. So it's quite ironic. But back to the case really quickly, Jacques, because I know your time is short and you're very generous with it. So the Supreme Court of Appeal said that the acts are very different, and that the Emergency Management Act is about, either preventing or mitigating a disaster. And it says nothing about race in there. And then, of course, BE, which is a separate piece of legislation, which allows for this enrichment or empowerment of Black South Africans, they're unrelated. And that the minister essentially misused the law, misapplied it in this case. And the judgment I'm reading, now I'm not an attorney here, but it looks as though they're saying that she knew what she was doing. I mean, it's obvious. I know she knew, but it is also clear that the minister was in no doubt as to the purpose of her direction. Basically, that tells me that Supreme Court Appeal says that Ngubane knew she was being a racist and she did it anyway.
That would be my interpretation as well. And what I also said about this judgment today was, so if the court found that she made a clear error in law, then there are two options. The first option is that her legal advisors are incompetent. That's the first option, which I doubt that's the reason. The second one is that she knew exactly what she was doing, but she was so blinded by her own racism that she decided she was still going to carry on with this. So there we have our two options, and I think the court gave us a very good idea of which one of those the truer one is.
And at the end, the court said that it was not open to the minister to justify the inclusion of the BBEE status levels. In other words, basically, there's a clear statement. She didn't have an option. She couldn't do this. She violated the law.
Yeah, she actually did quite a bit of effort, went to a lot of effort to go and kind of find the BEE laws, to bring them around and try and implement them into the Disaster Management Act. So she did put in a lot of effort to try and make those laws stick. But like the court said, they're not relevant to each other at the moment. They do not apply. There was no reason for her to do it.
And as I recall, also an awful lot of effort on her part from a public relations standpoint to attack both Solidarity Trade Union and AfriForum and others as saying basically what I would call race hustling. That'd be my description, that you don't support transformation of the economy. In other words, let's clear all the clouds away for the international audience to make them understand what they're basically saying, that those organizations are racist and they don't think that Black South Africans should have a fair shake. Obviously, that's not the case, but that's the race hustling that takes place in South Africa. That's my view on it. You're welcome to disagree with me if you think I've hit that wrong.
No, I agree with you 100%. But I will say that the minister was right in one regard, and we don't support transformation, not in the sense that the ANC is trying to apply it forcibly. We support equal opportunities, and may the best man win. not equal, not equality of outcomes through
Equality of
government
opportunity.
intervention and by shortchanging people who are putting their lives into their businesses and now just ripping it out from underneath them.
Well, basically, you're talking about equality of opportunity. Everyone gets a fair shake. The state ensuring that it's a level playing field for everybody. In fact,
Exactly.
it's gone the opposite direction. Education is worse now than it was under the National Party for all groups. It's quite crazy. But anyway, you've been very generous with your time. I'll have to try to get you back on because I saw a news article today about AfriForum and Cape Independence. We won't get into that today, but that's an interesting development there. And I'd like to get you back on. Jacques, I want to thank you very much, Bye Donkey, for coming on the program at such short notice and helping us get a little clarity on this position. Going forward, is AfriForum happy with this? And the reason I ask this is because there's no recourse now other than making it clear that they broke the law, the ANC and this minister, because the money's gone. It's not going to come back. So is AfriForum, you can't speak for Solidarity, but is AfriForum satisfied with the Supreme Court of Appeal decision today?
We are satisfied with the decision today. For the time being, we'll have to see what happens now. We'll have to see how much money is left, if there's anything left, and then we'll formulate a new strategy from there. But for today, it was a win, and we're grateful for that.
Well,
thank you very much for having me on, Chris.
It's my pleasure. Take care. I'll let you drop off. Hey, folks, that was Jacques Broodryk from the AfriForum, and he came on to talk to us a little bit about the events of today. And he came on to talk about events today from the Supreme Court of Appeal from South Africa, which declared that Ngubane, the then tourism minister of South Africa in April of 2020, pursued an illegal, unlawful program of race-based discrimination against South African businesses in order to comply and stretch the laws with broad-based Black economic empowerment. Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks a lot. My thanks to my guest for such short notice appearance on the program. Everyone, thanks a lot. If you're not a subscriber to Chris Wyatt Africa, you're looking for independent journalism and reporting on events in South Africa, hey, right here, subscribe right below, push that button and follow us here on Chris Wyatt Africa. Thanks a lot. God bless, and everyone have a good day. Appreciate your support. Cheers.